Before getting into the show, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Sunday's show presented to you by the Birdsall Law Firm, the official injury lawyers of Boot Crew Media, located at 918 Poydras Street by the Superdome. Give them a call at 504-523-5413 if you or someone you know has been involved in an accident. Birdsall Law Firm, the official injury lawyers of Boot Crew Media. Chaz, Lido, and Ross joining me on a Sunday night. Very excited about this show because, and Lido, we'll start with you first. I went solo a couple days ago and talked about what CJ McCollum said on his podcast, and I'm going to read you the quote, and then we'll go with Lido, Chaz, and we'll go Ross, and I want to get y'all's reactions because I think it's important what CJ's doing, especially to start this offseason. But he said it's hard to be successful as an organization, as a team, when you got guys in and out of the lineup. You got guys in and out of practice. You got coaching staff not sure who's going to play each night. It puts a lot of strain on the organization and players who have to play more minutes. This is also piggybacking what he said after the the Thunder loss in the playing game. Lido, some people have called it corny. Some people like the leadership. What are your thoughts on what CJ's been doing?
Accountability is not corny.
Really?
Accountability is important. The thing is, I'm trying to find, bro. I replied to somebody about this, and I was trying to find my tweet. But anyways, I'm gonna just freestyle it. We kind of talked about this before we started recording. He never pointed a finger at anybody in particular. He never said a name,
Right.
and a lot of his statements said us, our, and we. So, to me, that's great leadership because you're including yourself in saying, I was injured. I was out there. I didn't play my best, but bro, he was out there to me. So when you asked me who the MVP of the team was, when we had to do that, we had to go through that whole thing, right? To me, like, if you're playing, like, that counts for something. Games played means something. I appreciate it. We've never had a veteran come in and do that before. We've never had a guy come in and set the tone. Like, we're just a bunch of nice guys who let a lot of shit slide. Whether it's, and listen, I'm not, injured players can't play, so I'm not even like blaming it on anybody's injury. I'm just saying the process of getting yourself ready to play.
Yeah. And Chaz, he also said something I thought was interesting. He later in the podcast said, like, I ate how I was supposed to eat. I slept how I was supposed to sleep. I, got all my workouts in, things like that. Do you think he's just kind of taking shots at others, or do you think he's just kind of talking about how the season was a roller coaster kind of ride?
I'm gonna preface this with this, right? CJ came into camp this offseason, from this offseason out of shape, right? Let's just put all the cards on the table. CJ came in out of shape. But if we talking about resumes compared to everyone else on this team, CJ is the only person who has the right to say anything about anyone. CJ has the right to criticize these guys because, for one, he's a professional, shows up to work every day, like came to work every day. See, this season you're not even in a discussion to lose another season derailing loss to the OKC. It's not for CJ playing the majority of the games he's played, right? So I think people get caught up in the recency bias and how CJ ended the season, whereas at one point people was talking about CJ possibly being an all-star, this same season. So I think people get caught up in the recency bias. I don't think anything's wrong with what CJ said. And if CJ wanted to take it a step further and name names, hey, that would have been up to him. This because these guys, because we talking about two people here. These guys, they don't deserve any like extra grace. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's not like, fucking Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. Like, well, Mike and Scottie, we know how they are when they're healthy. They're going through a rough patch. No, they never done nothing. So these motherfuckers' careers have been seven years of rough patches. How many years Zion played? 4 or 5. It's always a rough patch. Like, come on, man. At some point, you gotta you gotta show up to work, bro. So whatever CJ's saying, I wholeheartedly support the message and the messenger.
Okay. Because also Ross, he talks about talks window of opportunity. I know we mentioned that a lot in the on this show, and how every season's very important. He doesn't want to waste, he felt like this year, like they just missed a chance. And I think when you have a young roster who don't understand the opportunity that they have. I think it's important that CJ does say that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, look, Chad just alluded to it. He's not saying names, but it's pretty clear who he's talking about. And I agree with him. Look, CJ's looking at this different than some guys on our roster, right? Like, he's on the back end, and he knows it. And it's not that he's not, that he can't be a useful player. It's not that he can't be a starter, whatever. Forget all that.
Right.
Like, the dude's not dumb. Like, he's well aware of where he is in his career. And there's not time to just sit here and mess around. I mean, I think the reason people think it's corny is because we were just in the locker room with these guys for 82 games, 83, 84, actually. Waiting till the offseason to kind of say some of this stuff, I think it's like, hey, look, dude, you're the president of the Players Association, most veteran guy on the roster, the only dude who's accomplished basically anything of note. Like, I think there was probably opportunities during the season to have made some of this stuff clear. And I think that, at least for me, that's the only part of it where I'm like, nobody would have said shit if you'd have popped off like this 2 months ago.
So wait, well, I'm glad you brought that up because we talk about the locker room. There was this thing that happened, after the Lakers game where there was a players meeting, so on and so forth. Are you talking about publicly calling the team out? Because obviously 100%. That's players. Okay.
Yeah, I can't. Because
why call someone out publicly?
For the exact reason he just called him out publicly 3 days after the season ended. Like, a message has to be sent. You think Zion or the players he's referring to were taking things, looking at the season differently 2 months ago than they are right now? I don't. Make that stuff clear. Like, it really needs to be made clear before the season started. But I don't know. I appreciate what he said. I think we all, while being critical of CJ at certain points of this year, respect the hell out of him for doing some of the things he did do. And this type of thing has to happen, man. Like, you gotta. Draymond Green sucker punched the dude in offseason, in preseason. And I'm not saying that's a good thing or what you want to do, but every team, like Lito said it, this is a group, the whole organization of like, hey, we're real nice guys, happy to be here. And it's time some of that shit's got to be done. Like, if you want to compete at the highest level, them dudes ain't nice guys. You ain't everybody's friend.
Yeah. Now, Lito, this is the biggest question, right? How will these players receive it? Do you think you're going to see? Because I think it's one thing. It's one thing to call players out, and some take it as like, oh, like maybe we should get going, and some might take offense to it. How do you think players are going to receive the message from CJ McCollum? Muted. Hold up.
Shit, my bad.
He's good for those once a show at least.
I feel like if they take it in an adverse manner, then that's exactly who I'm talking about, right? Like, hit dogs holler all the time. So if you feel any type of way about somebody telling the truth about what the hell you've been doing, like, grow up. Like, just grow. Like, what do you hear? I feel like organizationally you need to look at that, because if a guy's calling you, if Griff were to call like he did at the end of the season, he in the exit interviews, he kind of said something about holding Zion accountable, right? Like, if this happens 4 years ago, are we here now? Does CJ have to do this? You know what I'm saying? Like, this somebody has to set the tone, right? And you traded for him. Like Ross said, is the president of the Players Association. So if you can't hear from him, I don't know who you can hear from.
And to be clear, like, we can stop tiptoeing around. He's talking to one dude. There's one dude that makes a difference on this roster, whether he plays or he doesn't play. Let's stop cutting around it. Like, he's talking to one guy.
Do you believe he's talking you? So, like, that's obviously been going on.
I know you might be asking everybody the question. My response to the question is unequivocal. Like, he's talking specifically to one person. Like, I don't think he's talking to Herb or Jose. I don't even think he's talking to Brandon. I think it's clear he's talking to one guy. It's been said all over national TV, like national media. It's obvious to us. The ceiling for this roster without Zion is very clear, incredibly clear at this point.
Yep.
Like we're talking to one guy. One dude's got to get. I mean, it sucks. That's unfortunate. That's the role of a superstar in the NBA. Like, you're talking to one dude. One dude's got to get his act together.
Look, I'm laughing because I guess given what happened earlier in the season, like after the Rockets game, and the shit that Christian talked about when Christian was on the show, how the front office and everybody. This is before Zion's injury. They were more frustrated with Brandon. I'm assuming, since CJ is like honorary head coach. So, because look, it is what it is. That's what CJ is. And so I kind of think that it's probably maybe 70-30, like Zion and Brandon. But again, either one of them, they don't got like a leg to stand on to even defend themselves, because it's like, what you gonna say? Like you just played 29 games. Now, I don't know what happened with the medical thing. That's still muddy. The water's a little muddy with that, so we still don't know exactly what happened. But with the other shit, the other guys, like, all right, you played 40-something games. And it's just like, I'm a professional. Like, I'm not used to dealing with this. I'm coming from playing with Dame. I'm coming from back to back playoff appearances. Like I had
9 in a row, if I'm not mistaken.
And some big performances in the playoffs. See, we can look at the last couple of performances and say, like, yo, come on, CJ. But you're talking about CJ at 29, 30, 31. You're not talking about CJ when he was Brandon's age, when he was Zion's age, when he was putting up numbers. CJ is a hell of a player when healthy.
He'll bucket.
Yeah, he's a good player.
Well, that's what I wanted to bring up, Lito, because what would you say to the people, right? I saw some replies of saying, like, people were just saying, well, he needs to worry about his own play and he, this and that. And listen, I said it a couple of days ago. I've been really tough on CJ, but once again, at least he's out there. At least he's trying to do the right thing. And so I don't really necessarily care about that. What I do care about is setting a standard and holding others accountable. And as a coach, like, good teams, coaches hold players accountable. Great teams, players hold each other accountable. And that's like something that we've never really had. And I think what CJ's trying to do, that's what he's trying to do. And I think I'm interested to see how the message is received. I really am. So, I mean, we'll see.
I think. Can I add this?
Yeah.
I think. I don't. I know. Well, I don't know how Zion's going to respond, right? But I think at this point, Zion he needs to start worrying about, is he going to get dropped from Jordan? So he already lost $28 million, this season due to this injury, right? So at this point, he got like his career kind of on the line, his his financial security, and as far as his brand extensions are kind of on the line. But I think if we know anything about Brandon's going to tell him go fuck himself. Like, Brandon not gonna respond to no CJ. Brandon don't respond. Brandon not. I
don't know. Hold on. I kind of disagree.
Gundy, who made
Brandon and CJ seem to like each other. They seem to.
Don't you think it's more about he's trying to set the tone for the offseason? And like, for the most part, to me, that's again looking at one guy. Like, I appreciate the point you're making there, but there's one dude you're worrying about coming in out of shape.
Oh yeah.
Like,
there's
one dude
makes a big difference.
Yeah. Like, there's one. I mean, like, you never like. Yeah, Brandon may get hurt and it may take him forever to come back, and he may, whatever, this, that, and the other. But like, usually Brandon shows up in shit. Like, it's really one guy that you're, there's only one dude that wasn't answering CJ's calls last year, I bet. No.
Well, this offseason, he said it was Brandon. But I just think the team, I'll just say this. They got clicks on this team. You got clicks, right? And certain people, they might respond to a way Justin says something, and they might respond to a way I say something, right? So I think the dynamic, only certain people will respond to the way CJ talks to them because of CJ's demeanor. CJ's a real classy guy, and then you need some people who gonna like curse you out and kind of, put you down to a point so you can show up and kind of prove them wrong. And I just wonder if that dynamic, which is going to work with Zion and or Brandon at this point.
And to be clear, I think this roster needs that second guy too. I think this roster needs one of those second guys too. We don't have a hey, fuck you guy. Like, show up and do your job publicly right here in the middle of everybody. We ain't got nobody like that. Hadn't had anybody like that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You
Rondo.
look at some of the teams in the playoffs, right? Like a Marcus Smart or a Draymond Green, or you know, you can go. List goes on and on. Got to have one of those guys. But Lito, we were talking about. Okay, so CJ's been saying this stuff, and then David Griffin says in his exit interviews, you know, you should be pissed off, you should be embarrassed, or you know, we missed the playoffs, and we understand what to do. Okay, so now is this a make or break summer for David Griffin? Because now this is year 5. This is his 5th summer. And he's finished, I think it's 14th, 13th, 9th, and 9th. How many more summers can we do this?
You got it. No. As far as like the Brandon missing 30, Zion miss 30 type, you gotta fix that. You gotta eradicate that whole problem. I don't know what the fix is because you can't draft health and you can't trade for health. Right. But I think you gotta build the roster around kind of how the Grizz do it. You gotta take their blueprint. You gotta draft individual players and not so many projects, but
like a Dyson where you already have Herb. Is that what you're talking about? Drafting the same person? Chaz, I know, Chaz. We don't have to talk about that tonight, but I'm trying to elaborate on what Lito's saying.
I mean, just kind of more of like, I'm talking about drafting players, not like, for instance, you draft player X because this guy will cut when Zion is driving the ball. You know what I'm saying? Like, right. you have to draft guys based on their own individual merits, regardless of how you think it would look next to. Because if you look at Memphis, like they have, bro, you talk about like a deep roster, like that's a deep roster, right? I mean, they don't look the greatest right now because they have, you know, key players hurt, but I think that is the next move. But let me say this. Hold on, Justin. Let me say this. You were kind of asking me a question about accountability, like people getting mad at it, and I'm like, to me, the only people who will get upset about it, as far as fans, coaches, players, is people who don't like being held accountable. If you've been on a team before, if you've been on team scenarios with guys, like, bro, you know how that go. Like, you know, people, man, I'm in the locker room. I'm out here busting my ass every day. I'm gonna come in. You go hear about it. You don't look the best, right? You could look better. Like you did that move last summer. Like you ain't add nothing to your bag the whole summer. Like I would be. It would infuriate me if I was on a team and nobody was holding nobody accountable. Like that would piss me off so much, especially when, you know, like you got guys like Jose doesn't have the cachet that a Brandon or a Zion or a CJ has, right? But you got guys who just come in and he play hard. You got your Jonas's and you got CJs and guys who had moderate success in the NBA. And for what it's worth, Zion and Brandon haven't accomplished anything.
No. Well, I mean, this roster hasn't. I mean, besides a playoff berth last year, but I mean that's really it. But Chaz, I think with Griffin now, if he fails this offseason, is this it for him?
I don't know, because I question the seriousness of ownership, and also I don't know how to necessarily define failure for him. Because at this point, in my opinion, it's over. Like you already failed. Like,
why so? Why would you say he's already failed?
Because I'll say this. I don't know exactly what Griff does. So let's just presume that Griff just oversees what the GM and coaches and everyone else does. If that's the case, then everyone you hired stinks. Like everyone's that's been brought in under your watchful eye hasn't been good. Trajan hasn't been good. Willie and this staff has not been good. Even if you hire staff, no matter what reason Stan was let go, that staff wasn't good.
So would you say just to get the Trajan thing? Would you say I know he's had the 2019 draft is looking He did get Trey, Herb, undrafted Jose, undrafted Najee. Do you think that goes? Do you think you give credit to Trajan there, or is it just
absolutely not? And I'll tell you why. Because okay. I see some people present that argument, right? Jose was an undrafted free agent, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Same with Najee.
All right, same with Najee. If you look at opportunity costs and things that those picks should have became, or no front office had more to work with than David Griffin and Trajan Lane. No front office started off with more capital than this front office, right? You swing and miss on a guy like Darius Garland. Well, you don't even get Darius Garland. That pick turns into DeAndre Hunter. Ultimately turns into Herb Jones. Herb Jones is a hell of a player, but Herb Jones shouldn't have been picked 4th or picked 8th. Like, you know what I'm saying? You could have got Herb Jones fucking second round pick. You could have stumbled into Herb Jones. You stumbled into him with this. And it's like, come on. So that's one draft pick. Let's say Trey Murphy. Okay. Traded back in 13, 17. You got Trey Murphy. Good. All right. But you failed with Kyrie Lewis. Therese Maxey is looking like a max player, no pun intended. And he was like pick 8. You could have moved that pick. Dyson Daniels, I don't even need to really speak on that.
You don't have to.
But I'm saying, but that's another asset that could have been packaged to improve your team now. Because right now, I'll speak on this later, but there's very few avenues you have to improve this roster without making nuclear changes. And I think that's the problem when you don't draft well.
And they haven't, you're right, Chaz. Ross, go ahead.
No, I don't. Yeah, I think Chaz said it best there. It's hard to know what success looks like because there was a ton of people that'll tell you this year was a success, right? They finished over 500 the first time in 7 years, whatever. You know, without your superstar player, it's hard to know. Give you a hard yes or no, but I think some of the things CJ said were layered in it management and ownership too. I think, those guys got to stop sitting on their hands and take a little more accountability and leadership and take a more disciplinary role in terms of managing this thing too. Justin, you and I sat here, this was back when it was just me and you doing this show, and said the window with Zion is not 12 years. It ain't 10. It's probably 6. And here we are in year 5, and we've done nothing. Nothing. Thank God they butchered this playoff, situation and added in the play-in so that 10 teams, technically are involved. Other than that, we ain't made the playoffs. This team has not made the playoffs yet. It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. You've been through, countless coaches. The Devontae Graham thing was it was a disaster. They atoned for the Eric Bledsoe and the Stephen. There's been some bad moves made. I think a lot of times Griffin comes out at the end of the year and says the right things, but I don't know how much of it I'm seeing in reality, in practice. So I don't know. Look, it's a big offseason. I think if next year looks like this year, I think even with an ownership group that's sort of passive at best, I think everybody's in trouble. So yeah, I think to a certain degree it's going to be make or break, just because there's now a lot of light getting shined on what's happening down here, and some of the failures. And I think the noise from a national perspective is just going to get so loud if you go 41-41 next year and miss the playoffs again, that they'd have to do something.
I'm sorry, Justin.
I was gonna say presented by Cumberberg, located 4600 Freret Street, but go ahead, Lito.
No, I was gonna say just to kind of add on to what Ross was saying about the national media, like the noise is now surrounding Zion again, as it was, all the past offseason. And now they're saying that he cost this team a trip to the finals. So, I mean, if he needs any extra motivation, which I don't know why you would need any extra motivation as a hooper to hooper, right? I don't know why you would need any extra motivation. Like you play basketball for a living. And like Chad said, you missed out on hella money just now. But for the second year in a row, if you have to have people paint a bullseye for you rather than to know where the target is yourself, I feel like that kind of bothers me a little, to be honest.
Why?
Because you shouldn't need CJ to come out and say this. Like, you've been under this microscope already. Like, you should be above board on everything you do physically No, I'm not talking about his mental status because that's not something I can account for. I could just pray that he gets, whatever pray that he needs to talk to whoever he needs to talk to. I'm not talking about that, but physically, you gotta do. I think last part we said LeBron is the standard. When it comes to taking care of your body. I'm not even saying he gotta be LeBron.
Right.
Be Russell Westbrook though.
Yeah, be DeMar DeRozan. Like,
Yeah.
Shit.
Do you? Well, we talked about this, Ross. I think we talked about this, Ross. But I'm gonna get to you, Chaz.
Mm-hmm.
But I presented this question last week. It's like, okay, you can get Zion, to stretch for every game and ramp up and get to the weight room and do this and do that. But once he leaves the facility and he's on his own, right? You can't control him then. And at some point, I think now the national media is starting to kind of turn on Zion, as one of y'all just pointed out to. What has to change with him? Because we can say you only doesn't hang out with the right people or this or that, but ultimately it's on him, and if he wants to be good or not, because he's the only one who can control what he eats and things like that. And works out.
I just want to say one thing. I'm sorry, Chaz. I don't.
It wasn't my turn.
It was to Ross.
Ross, I'm sorry. I know you about to give a great point. I feel it. I feel like you about to come through and crush the buildings, right? I just want to say this, Justin. You said, hold on. Can you repeat the part you said after he leaves the building? Can you trust him? Can you say that part again?
Yeah. So after he leaves the facility, can you trust him to be mature? I guess.
Is he a fucking child? Like, is he a?
That's the okay. So Griffin called him a kid. Griffin called him a kid a couple of days ago. He's like, I gotta stop calling him a kid. Yeah, you do, man. Like, they treat him like a kid. That's the problem.
That is exactly the problem. Yes, and even externally, some of the stuff you hear is like, well, he's still young. I'm so tired of hearing how young our team is. Brandon Ingram's been in the league for how many years, Chaz? 7, 8?
About that. Yeah.
Like, Zion has now been in the NBA 4 full years. Like, stop telling me this team is young. CJ been here for 10, however many.
Mm-hmm.
Willie Green played a long time, has now been assistant. Stop telling me this is a young team. Stop doing that. That is an excuse.
What starts at the top? It starts with
immaturity.
Griffin.
That is an excuse for failure. Like, it's not no, this is not that young of a team, man. Go look at some of the teams in the playoffs. You think we're any older than Memphis? No. Like, there's a few old teams, yeah. But no, a lot of the teams that are playing well, they got dudes in the same kind of mid-20s that we got. Like, this team ain't that young. That drives me crazy. Like, stop treating these people like they're high schoolers. These guys ain't in high school. Zion's been a glorified professional basketball player since he was probably a senior in high school. Like, no, learn how to act. Stop. We got to stop doing that.
It starts with Griffin. It starts with Griffin. Go ahead, Chaz.
For me, I don't really care about him eating Snickers bars and all that shit. Just because I'm like, I get okay. That does play a part into injury prevention, right? But I think it's organizational. Again, I think if you trade tomorrow for Joel Embiid, you're going to see the Joel Embiid from the process. You're not going to see this Joel Embiid. And I think so much of it is like there's no demands coming into this organization. And the fans are the worst of all, because the fans, they got such low self-esteem. I don't give a fuck what player it is. It could be Bruce Bowen right now, this current Bruce Bowen. They're gonna be like, oh, we happy Bruce Bowen chose to be here. Oh, it's like, nah, you gotta have some standards so you can build a solid foundation. So when players come here, they know what's expected of them. Not like, oh, I'm going to the Pelicans. I can pretty much do what I want. Like, I got the keys to the build. And that has to stop. Once that shifts, then you'll see players take more accountability off the court. Like, oh, well, I don't want to do that because if I come in late tomorrow, I know how Willie Green gets, and I don't feel like dealing with him. And, let me go to sleep on time. If I do this, if I miss my weigh-in, I don't want to have to deal with that. There's no consequences or accountability.
I might have to hear about it.
Yeah, and look, team had a thing with CJ and whoever else tried to hold guys accountable after that Lakers loss. What did they do? They went out there and got their ass kicked by the Rockets. So this is like no one took his threat serious. Like, y'all better figure this shit out. Yeah, okay. Go out there, blow a 20-point lead the next day against the Rockets. No one cares because it's organizational. Like,
but that goes back to the original point of why I can't understand why some
I think
people.
That's ownership too. That's
but back to like that's why I can't understand why people are upset with CJ. Be like, oh well, this is ridiculous. He's called like, no, it's fine. Like he's finally starting to set a standard and like, what should you expect when we all get here? This is what I expect, and it kind of goes back to Lido, flashback all the way to last summer. They did the yoga thing, and everybody showed up besides one person. We all know who that person was. Zion. There was a big investigation on Twitter. Someone came out, said that he's in Miami, and they took pictures of his car and whatever it may be. And there was like in the windshield. I don't know what it was, but it starts there. But that continues, man. Like Zion, who was it? JJ said that he wasn't like a great teammate or something like that.
JJ said the locker room pretty much is a bunch of choir boys.
I think, Lido, when you start calling Zion out on a national stage, that kind of gets his attention. So I love what CJ did.
It's something that he's not used to. Everybody, he got a bunch of. I mean, I can't confirm this because me and Zion are not friends. Because if we was friends, buddy, he'd hear about it, right? I think he has a bunch of yes men around him, and I think when you've been a star your whole life, you know what I'm saying, on every level, you kind of get a different treatment. And I think that you hear stories about how Pop coached Tim Duncan so he could be able to coach everybody else. He coached him like a regular guy because when a regular guy hears you berating Tim Duncan, he's going to be like, well, who the fuck am I? Like, if he could talk to him like that, he could talk to me like that, right? And I think that may not necessarily be Willie Green's personality, but I think that's where you got to bring veterans into the locker room to have that sort of accountability and sustain that. And let me say this. I'm going to know this team is serious because I want to hear what you have to say, Justin, but I'm going to know whether this team is serious or not if Garrett Temple's on the roster again. That's going to tell me everything I need to know.
You know what? You just made a real good point, Lido, and it's one of the things that, you know, I go both ways on this, right? And it pissed me off all year that if Garrett Temple is going to sit over there on the sideline as a glorified coach, then I need you either coaching, right? Or I need you doing what Udonis Haslem does, which is sitting on the side with a fucking scowl on your face, waiting for somebody to do something stupid on your own team. Just waiting. Like, either hold people accountable from a demeanor standpoint or coach.
Right.
But I saw too many times Garrett Temple over there shitting around.
You 40.
Laughing on the bench.
40. You're not one of them.
No, I need one or the other from you. If you want to coach, let's put a suit on a coach. I'm cool with that. If that's Garrett Temple's future, hey, power to it, man. Good for you. If you're going to have a jersey on next year, I need something else. You're not just going to take the 12th spot and sit over there and fuck around with the young dudes or the assistant coaches. I just found too much times where he's over there laughing and you know, having himself a jolly little time. Like, hey, if you're going to be the veteran, you know, old dude, then be that. Like, stop. You know, I just don't think he has that cachet anyway. But
no,
it irritates me.
Like, y'all make a great point, but like, when did we become the Miami Heat? Like, the Miami Heat could do that. They've won 3 NBA championships. They've but
it's one guy. It's not like you don't have to be the Miami Heat.
No, but
to have a leader. Like, you don't have to be the best team in the world. To have.
You got to fucking start somewhere though. You got to start somewhere.
But Haslam's a 2-time NBA.
No. I'm talking to
Haslam. I mean, he's been just a role player his whole career. It ain't like that Jimmy Butler. I mean, decided in his 20th year he wanted to sit on the end of the bench and hold people accountable. That's a dude who's been doing that since he was 22 years old, coming in the NBA.
And the thing with Garrett Temple, because it's funny, I was watching some Kwame Brown tape like recently. I was like, man, let me see how was Kwame really bad? Kwame had a really good game against he was with the Bobcats and they had this game against the Orlando Magic. Kwame was a hell of a defender, and Kwame had a great game. But who was on that Bobcats team doing nothing? Fucking Garrett Temple. I said, yo, why would y'all even think this was a good idea? I mean, I get it from a trade salary standpoint. Like, all right, it makes a lot of sense. But aside from that, it's like you can't have if you got Willie Green, you don't need another substitute teacher here with him. Like you can't have that same one of the guys type personalities both on the roster, like or both like on the coaching staff because who's the disciplinarian? Who on this team right now?
That's
Larry Nance, and it's like
CJ.
That's
Larry,
been my
yeah,
that's been my kind of problem, right, with Willie Green, because I still think that he is going to be a good coach. I think he had a bad year this year, but he was great his first year. You got to be able to call people out though in the post game presser because you can't expect players to call out guys in the middle of the season. It just never
be able
goes
to call
well,
everyone
right?
out too.
Like I think Mike Brown did it this year with the Kings, and like Mike Malone's done it and things like that. You have to do that as a coach. I'm not saying you got to do it the SVG way, like we played like a bunch of high schoolers and things like that. But there are ways.
I got no
during the
problem with
season.
that.
Mike Brown called out his best two players with like 2 weeks left in the year.
Guys, and that's what I'm saying. I'm with you. Like when he said, I think after the Rockets, I was like, well, we had a chance to win. I mean, yeah, of course you had a chance when you're playing the Houston Rockets. Like you always got a chance to win. That was, I thought, the time where you could have called somebody out. But
had a chance to win when you got off the plane.
Yeah. Let's get into the last segment of the show. Presented by the Rusty Nail. All right, let's do Lito. We talked about free agent targets this offseason. Who are you looking at? And you can't say health.
The coaching staff. That's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at free agent coaches. I'm looking at free agent assistant coaches. Right? Why Charles Lee wasn't on this coaching staff? Like you. It was so many people. Kenny Atkinson, hella people who were available. Mike Brown. Like
was Mike Brown available?
Yeah, he had got let go. And
Mike Brown.
No, he did. Of Golden State.
That's how he made it to
Sacramento. No, he just took a job, right?
No, I think
there's no way Kerr fired him. There's no way.
No.
I don't remember.
He was a free agent at some point. I think he might have
went
been
to Golden
available. He might have been available when Elvin Gentry was available. Maybe that's what it was.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Lito.
No, you good. Yeah, he was with Golden State since 2016. Yeah, man. I'm looking at the seriousness of this organization as far as like coaching staff wise, because Griff said top to bottom. That's what he said, and I'm holding him accountable for his words. So I need, better from the president. I need better from, the GM. I need players to be better. But as far as like, I'm gonna be honest. Like I don't. Who is a free agent in 2023? Like I don't even know.
That's what I'm saying. The class is not that great, so you got to be be creative.
Whatever they do, they need to bring Tyus Jones over from. I think okay. So Russ is a free agent, bro. I love Russ. Like I don't care what y'all.
I got crushed because I wanted Russell Westbrook on the team. I said we should probably go look at him.
Russ would probably be perfect.
But Russ is a free agent.
Harrison Barnes is a free agent.
D'Angelo Russell's a free agent. Barnes a free agent.
Gary Trent Jr.
Let me just stop y'all. We ain't got no kind of money for any of the guys y'all are talking about. We bargain basement shoppers this summer unless we start clearing cap space in some way. I just want that to be clear. Like we are not sitting here with max or anything even remotely close to max space.
So
all the guys you're talking about,
you can talk about Trae Young, but that's gonna be a trade.
Nah, I think for as free agents, I think you got to look at guys who kind of, they're used to playing in poor markets and or like they're looking for a nice boost in contract. I think Naz Reid is a good option, mid-level exception type guy. And I personally like Corey Joseph a lot. I think we could use some intelligence in that backcourt and some competition for Jose. And for even on the trade market, man, like I went through so many scenarios, and truthfully, there's only about 2 to 3 ways you improve this team via trade. And only one of them isn't nuclear. So it's like I think the Pelicans are in a really bad position. Honestly, I think looking at everything that shit Griff said, like I know a bunch of people would rather have our roster. Like, yeah, I don't know. Those people are probably crackheads because this shit, like, this is not a good situation contractually and salary cap. The Pelicans have put themselves into a really bad corner to where you got to make a choice between. I mean, I'm gonna say it. It sounds like it's an easy choice, but you got to make a choice between Brandon, Zion, and Larry Nance. One of those three players need to be gone for this team to improve drastically this offseason.
Or all those picks, Chaz.
Huh?
I said or all the draft.
Not, but even with the picks, this team
you can clear the space.
Not well. With the team doesn't have like the Devontae Graham thing. I'm glad you brought that up too, Justin. With the Devontae Graham thing, that was a huge mistake. That was like the thing a lot of us were saying as far as like, now you don't have that salary to move. The only real salary you have to move, you got $47 million, but that's including Larry Nance. You got 37 without Larry Nance. But that's if you totally just wipe your roster clean. You need Larry Nance's salary. But do you move Larry Nance? He's one of the few people who stood up to players in the locker room this season. So I'm sure they're not eager to get rid of him. So it's kind of like, I mean, you can go get Buddy Hield via trade, but ain't no free agents coming here. Malik Monk turned you down. Tim Hardaway Jr. turned you down. Schroeder turned you down. Motherfucker from across the street turned you down. Kyle Lowry never was coming here. Chris Paul never was coming here. No one wants to come to New Orleans. So you got to get a 1 foot in the league type motherfucker, or you got to get a person who you have to overpay to get somebody. You can only get better via trade.
I kind of put together like a short list of players that like I would be interested in. It just depends on the money here for me. Like when I look at somebody like Harrison Barnes, if I could have a player like that coming off my bench, like I'd be fine with that, right?
No, you ain't got enough money.
You don't have enough. No, that's what I'm saying. It just depends on the money. But like, so for me, Max Strauss, Nas Reed, Plumlee, George Niang, PJ Washington. You don't have the money for Gary Trent. You don't have the money for
real good.
Like Trey Lyles, Jermichael Green, Gabe Vincent, Damian Lee, Xavier Tillman.
Shoes kind of like a poor man's like Bojan.
I think they're
a guard.
Yeah,
Shoes a guard.
Yeah, he's a guard.
Yeah. They're players that you can find where I don't think you're gonna have to spend a whole lot of money for. But it's like I don't know, man. I don't know what.
Hey, would y'all trade for Duncan Robinson?
No.
I know the contract's horrific.
No.
How many firsts are they giving me?
Yeah, they go right.
If they give me, give me 2 firsts, I think, I would do it.
Then what are you trading to get it? Like if you're saying that they're just literally giving him.
Yeah, they're giving him away
because it's gonna be hard for us to match the salaries.
That's the same.
He's only making about what, 17 million.
17, so whatever. Million? To call it 20, 18 to 20.
Can I present something before we get off? I want to present this question, Chaz. I'm gonna let you answer first.
18 million.
Would you re-sign Jackson Hayes?
Yeah,
I think they're gonna have.
I would do it for multiple reasons. For one, like I just said, I can't imagine Jackson has an incredible market, and you don't have many options for his mid-range salary. So I would give him a nice $10-12 million fake contract. Gail Benson's cheap. She don't want to pay the tax. So I'll be in this fucked up situation now because she fucking is awful. You know what I'm saying? Keeping it real because that Devontae Graham thing fucked us. But I would sign Jackson to a nice middle range contract, non-guaranteed, and I trade his ass.
I was gonna say it when it got to me, Justin. I don't think we have a choice. I think the market, the free agent market is so trash this summer. And I just really think you're gonna struggle to get anybody because the guys we're talking about are the same guys that every team really, with the exception of some of the really specific, the Corey Josephs of the world. Karis LeVert would be a guy I'd be somewhat interested in, just like a bucket getter off the bench, like DiVincenzo and stuff. But those are guys that are now in the playoffs on competitive teams.
Right.
Like every team is going to be looking at DiVincenzo now. Like he was hurt last year, went to the Warriors, is like rehabbed his value. I just don't. It's going to be I just don't know what you're going to be able to get even bargain shopping.
Y'all are forgetting something.
I think for back to Chaz's point though, I think you're going to have to give Jaxson Hayes a little money just so that come January 1st you have that salary to move, because I don't think anybody wants Jaxson Hayes, to be honest.
I just thought about something. I think Gallinari is a free agent this offseason.
Towards ACL, the Celtics, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind taking a flyer on Gallo if he wanted to come here. But again, But what point were you about to make, Justin?
We're forgetting something. I was talking about like the free agency thing. Like we're gonna sign the biggest free agents this offseason, Zion Williamson, man. Like we're adding him back to the roster just like last summer. So I mean, seriously, we're getting Zion. That pisses Ross is rocking. Like
I mean,
I'm just so tired of hearing it. And I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
It's just until something changes, right? He's gonna have to come back and play. I just have. I got to see it, and I'm already having nightmares about us just sitting here doing the same thing come game 60 next year. I'm like, it's a nightmare. Like the only thing I keep going back to the pick thing. I know we'll eventually have a full pod on just trade scenarios and realistic things that can happen, but we got to get out from these picks, man. We got to get out.
We should.
Because they're just getting. I mean, they're just getting less valuable by the minute.
Yeah. Can I ask y'all this? If let's say y'all had a B plus player, right? Guy who's like not even B plus. Let's say he's a B, right? And you can trade him. The only pathway to getting better was if you move this B player for 2 C's or for a B minus.
Is Mikal Bridges a B minus or a C?
Mccollum might be a B plus at this point. On that contract, the way he playing, man, Mccollum probably be a fucking B plus. So, but I'm saying because again, going through this scenario, you really don't have many ways to get better to start this season unless, you can move JV and like hire for Buddy Hill, some shit like that. But you need multiple moves like to really improve this roster, right? So, because
it's just the problem though, Chaz, is that what if Brandon and Zion are like just a deadly duo? You just don't know yet.
They fucking ain't. They never. You can't have. Look, okay,
don't count. I'm not counting that.
You said deadly or dead?
Oh man, that shit might be DOA. But you know what though? Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was about to say, you know what? Personally, I would try to run it back with Brandon and Zion with a better staff and see if someone can break through to them. But that means you have to move Larry Nance. And the locker room is so shitty that now a guy like Larry Nance, respect to Larry, he's like irreplaceable. So it's like, what the fuck are we doing?
I gotta. We've mentioned his name a bunch of times, and like obviously I like Larry Nance, but like, you really think that he's like that integral from a character perspective? Like I don't. Yeah. My hunch is that the organization is not viewing him in that way. Like if it comes down to improving the roster this summer, means that Larry's money, has to go as salary matching. Like, I don't think anyone is gonna like blink.
I think so, but I also wonder like what CJ wants, because it's kind of when we talk about clicks again. You got Larry and CJ, and you got the other guy in his clique, and you got Zion who just kind of floats from lunch table to lunch
that's
table.
A real easy conversation to have with CJ. It's like, hey, you because CJ is now stuck his neck out.
Yeah.
You want to talk about it? Well, here, this is us being about it. Here's the deal we're gonna do.
Your boy gotta go.
You care more about your boy who's eighth or ninth guy on the roster, or do you care more about us improving this thing, as you said, because you want to win and you know where you're at in your career? Like, you can't do both of those things.
Yeah.
CJ ain't got that much.
Let's get Lito. Let's get Lito in here to close this out.
All right, let me say this. So, looking at the roster, right? Let's. I'm gonna start at the top. Looking at the roster, you're losing Josh Richardson, you're losing Willie Hernan-Gomez, you're losing Najee, you're possibly losing Jax also, right? here's the thing. I'm gonna just go back to free agents for a second. Seth Curry, Torrey Craig, Alex Lynn, Grant Williams, and I think, don't quote me on this, but I think Jaden McDaniels. However, you also have Herb Jones. So you have to make a decision somewhere. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's an important, because I think in 2024 he's a restricted free agent. So
Herb?
do you? I believe so.
Yeah.
So do you even want to let it get that far? You know what I'm saying? Because you know,
nah, pay the man,
right?
Pay the man. Like,
make or break off seasons for David Griffin. It's make or break.
We heard that one before. We said,
I think it's actually this one though. I think it's got to be this one because they're like clear like holes in this roster or organization. Like, it's very like evident right now. But presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of Boot Crew Media. Ross, Lito, Chaz are signing off. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. We will see y'all on Wednesday. Talk to y'all later.
See ya.